10 things you must quietly eliminate from your life. Don't tell a soul. There's an old story about two travelers crossing a desert. The first man carried a 100-pound pack filled with things he might need someday. He refused to leave anything behind. 3 miles from the oasis, he collapsed from exhaustion and died surrounded by his useless stuff. The second woman carried a 20-pound pack with only essentials. She reached the oasis easily, rested, and continued her journey. Most people are the first traveler. They're dying underweight they don't even realize is killing them. Not dramatic, obvious burdens, quiet ones. Energy vampires disguised as friends, mental clutter masquerading as productivity, toxic patterns you've carried so long you forgot they weren't supposed to be there. These 10 ancient laws aren't about harsh elimination or aggressive cutting. They're about the gentle, intentional releasing of what's suffocating your peace, because your best life already exists. It's just buried under things, slowly destroying it. Law 1. The Stoic Energy Guardianship Principle. There's an old story about a village well that served everyone generously. One guy showed up every single day with a bucket that had a massive hole in it. Took water, never fixed the bucket, just kept coming back. The well keeper kept giving and giving until the well ran completely dry. Then the entire village suffered because the keeper couldn't bring himself to say, "Hey, maybe repair your bucket first before I keep filling it." That's what some relationships do to you. They take and never reciprocate. I'm not talking about people going through temporary hard times. We all need support sometimes. I'm talking about the ones who only call when they need something, disappear when you need help, and somehow always make their crisis your emergency. Here's what the ancient Stoics understood. Your energy isn't unlimited. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you're not responsible for fixing everyone's broken buckets, especially when they refuse to even try repairing them themselves. This isn't about being cruel or abandoning people who genuinely need support. It's about recognizing the difference between helping someone and enabling someone. Protecting your energy isn't selfishness, it's survival. Try this. Identify one relationship where you're giving 90% and receiving maybe 10. Create some gentle distance. Be less available. Respond more slowly. Make smaller commitments. Then watch what happens. Either they adjust their behavior and meet you halfway, or they disappear to find another well. Either way, you get clarity. A friend of mine had someone who only called during personal disasters, but vanished completely when my friend needed support. She created boundaries, still kind, still caring, but no longer the 24/7 emergency hotline. The person either learned to show up differently or found other people to drain. My friend's energy came back almost immediately. You're not a renewable resource. Stop treating yourself like one. Some people need to be loved from a distance, and that's okay. Law 2. The confusion action over someday law. There's this farmer in an old teaching story who waited for perfect weather to plant his seeds. Too hot one month, too cold the next, too wet, too dry, never quite right. 5 years passed. He never planted a single seed. Meanwhile, his neighbor planted every year in whatever conditions existed. Rain, shine, and perfect timing. 5 years later, the waiting farmer had nothing. The neighbor fed his entire village. That's what someday does to your dreams. It kills them softly while you wait for conditions that will never arrive. Perfect timing doesn't exist. You know what creates timing? Action. There's ancient wisdom that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now, today. Most people die with their best ideas still locked in their heads because they spent their whole lives waiting to feel ready. But here's the thing, you're never going to feel ready. That feeling you're waiting for, it doesn't show up before you start. It shows up after you've already been messy and imperfect for a while. Imperfect action today beats perfect planning forever. Start something ugly and messy today. Write the terrible first draft. Send the clumsy email. Make the awkward phone call. Launch the half-finished version. Because messy progress beats perfect procrastination every single time. And it's not even close. I know a guy who spent 8 years planning to write a book, researching, outlining, waiting to feel ready. A woman started writing messy chapters immediately and published them roughly. 8 years later, he's still planning. She's published 3 books. Same dream, different approach, completely opposite outcomes. Stop waiting for permission from the universe. Stop waiting for confidence to magically appear. Start before you're ready, because starting is what makes you ready. The confidence comes after the action, not before it. Yours someday has an expiration date, and it's arriving faster than you think. Law 3. The Taoist, no explanations needed freedom. Here's a story that'll hit different. An emperor issued a decree and then spent the next 3 years traveling his kingdom explaining his reasoning to every single citizen personally. He was so busy explaining that he never actually governed. Another emperor issued a decree, explained it to his trusted advisors, and moved on. His empire thrived because he was actually leading instead of defending every decision to people who wouldn't understand anyway. Why do you explain yourself to people who don't pay your bills, don't live in your skin, and frankly don't really care that much anyway? Did you cut your hair? You don't owe anyone a dissertation on follicular choices. You quit your job? You don't need to present a PowerPoint about your career trajectory. You stop hanging out with certain people? That's your business, not a public announcement. Here's what most people don't realize. Over-explaining is just people-pleasing, wearing a different costume. You think you're being polite or thorough, but really you're seeking approval from people whose opinions shouldn't matter. The ancient Taoists understood something crucial. Those who truly matter will understand without lengthy explanations. Those who don't understand won't accept any explanation you give anyway. No is a complete sentence, and you don't owe PowerPoints for your life choices. Try this next time someone questions a decision you've made. Resist the urge to justify it. Just say, "I've thought about it and this is what works for me," and change the subject. Watch how uncomfortable it feels at first. Then watch how liberating it becomes. I watched someone quit a job and spend hours explaining to everyone why, defending herself against questions from people who weren't offering her other employment. Her sister quit her job and simply said, "I'm pursuing other opportunities," and moved on. The second approach was 100 times less stressful and exactly as effective. Save your explanations for the few people who've earned access to your decision-making process. Everyone else gets the summary version or nothing at all. Your life, your choices, minimal justification required. Law 4, the Buddhist your path alone principle. There's this teaching about two gardeners. The first spent all his time obsessing over his neighbor's roses, comparing, measuring, feeling inadequate because his vegetables weren't as Instagram worthy. His own garden died from neglect while he was busy staring over the fence. The second gardener ignored everyone else's gardens completely, tended his vegetables, and fed his family for years while the first guy starved, surrounded by envy. That's what comparison does. It poisons you from the inside while you're busy watching other people's highlight reels. Every scroll through Instagram, every LinkedIn success story, every "I just bought my third rental property at 26" post, you're comparing your messy behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's carefully curated performance. And here's what nobody mentions. Half those flexes are faker than a $3 bill anyway. People rent cars for photos, they finance lifestyles they can't afford. They're one missed paycheck from collapse, but the Instagram looks pristine. You're torturing yourself over illusions. Ancient Buddhist teaching says, comparison is the thief of joy. And they weren't kidding. Your path is yours. Their path is theirs. Running someone else's race means you'll never win your own. The only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Unfollow, mute, and detach from accounts that make you feel inadequate. You don't need that noise. A guy I know checked LinkedIn daily and felt terrible seeing everyone's promotions and achievements. He muted it all and focused on developing his actual skills. 2 years later, he'd been promoted twice while those people were still performing successfully online. Your garden doesn't need to look like their garden. Your garden needs to feed you. That's it. Stop measuring your vegetables against their roses. Different plants, different purposes, different timelines. Tend what's in front of you and stop wasting energy on what's beside you. Because while you're busy comparing, you're not building. And building is the only thing that actually matters. Law 5, the Stoic authorship transformation. Two people survived the same shipwreck. Both lost everything. The first one spent the next 10 years telling everyone his tragic story. "I'm broken forever. Life destroyed me. I'll never recover." The second one told a different story. "The shipwreck was brutal, but it taught me resilience I didn't know I had." 10 years later, the first guy was still broken, still bitter. The second became a ship captain. Same event, completely different narration, totally opposite outcomes. I'm not here to dismiss your trauma or pretend bad things didn't happen to you. Life deals some people absolutely terrible cards, and that's real. But here's the hard truth. You get to choose how you narrate what happened. You can either be the permanent victim in your story or the person who survived something difficult and kept going. Staying in victim mode is comfortable in a weird way. It explains why things aren't working. It gives you permission not to try. It makes other people feel sorry for you. But it also keeps you stuck forever in a story that already ended. You can't control what happened, but you absolutely control how you tell the story of what happened. This isn't toxic positivity. I'm not saying just be grateful and think positive. I'm saying you get to decide if that chapter defines your whole book or if it's just one difficult chapter in a much longer story. You can acknowledge pain without making pain your entire identity. Two people I know experienced similar childhood difficulties. One built their whole personality around it. "I'm damaged goods. I'll never be okay." The other acknowledged it but chose, "This happened and it was terrible, but it doesn't get to define my entire future." The second person built a fulfilling life. The first is still stuck in a story from 20 years ago. You're the author here. You can't rewrite what happened, but you can absolutely choose what happens next. Start writing a better next chapter today. Law 6. The confusion, peaceful override wisdom. There's this story about two scholars who argued about a philosophical point for 30 straight years. Neither convinced the other. Both died frustrated, having wasted 3 decades on a debate that changed nothing. Meanwhile, the wise man avoided arguments completely and spent those same 30 years building a school that educated thousands. You don't need to participate in every debate you're invited to. Does someone think the earth is flat? Cool, let them take a cruise off the edge. Someone thinks pineapple on pizza is criminal? Great, more Hawaiian pizza for the rest of us. Every minute you spend arguing with people who aren't open to changing their minds is time you could have used to actually build something that matters. Ancient wisdom says, never wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it. Some battles genuinely aren't worth winning. Being at peace is infinitely more valuable than being correct in arguments that don't change anything. Winning pointless arguments costs more than losing them. I used to argue with strangers online about politics, spending 5 hours every week getting worked up over people I'd never meet. A friend spent those same 5 hours building a side business. 5 years later, I'm still seeing the same arguments with different usernames. She's making $40,000 a year from her business. That's the cost of needing to be right all the time. It's not the argument itself. It's every hour you could have spent creating, building, growing, resting. You trade progress for the temporary satisfaction of proving a point to someone who forgot the argument 5 minutes later. Pick your battles. Save your energy for debates that actually matter with people who are actually listening. Everyone else, let them be wrong. Your peace matters more than their correctness. Because at the end of your life, you won't remember the internet arguments you won, but you'll absolutely remember what you built or didn't build while you were distracted by pointless fights. Law 7. The minimalist clarity through space law. Picture a monk trying to meditate in a temple he filled with decorations, relics, offerings, and trinkets. Everywhere he looked, visual noise. His mind couldn't settle because the space couldn't breathe. Meanwhile, the master monk kept his temple nearly empty, just essentials. His mind found clarity instantly because the space created room for thought. That's what clutter does to your brain. And I'm not just talking about your closet, though if your clothes could open a thrift store, maybe handle that. I mean the mental clutter most people don't even notice anymore. 57 browser tabs open, 200 unread emails, notifications dinging every 5 seconds, junk you'll deal with later piling up in corners. It's all noise. Your brain sees clutter and interprets it as unfinished business. Every pile, every notification, every open tab is your brain going, that's something I need to handle. Even when you're not actively thinking about it, it's draining cognitive energy in the background like apps running on your phone. External chaos creates internal chaos, and you can't think clearly in a hurricane. Start deleting. Close those tabs. If it was important, you remember what it was. Archive those emails. If someone needs you, they'll email again. Clear one surface in your home completely. Just one. Notice how much lighter you feel looking at that empty space. A friend had her desk covered in papers, her computer desktop filled with files, 57 tabs open at all times. Her brain felt like static. She spent 1 hour closing everything, filing everything, clearing everything. Said her productivity and peace both doubled immediately, like someone turned down the volume on background noise she didn't know was there. You want mental clarity? Start by creating physical and digital space. Because the more clutter you tolerate, the more your brain thinks life is chaos. And when your brain thinks life is chaos, guess what? Life feels like chaos. Clear space equals clear mind. It's that simple and that powerful. Law 8. The Taoist selective availability boundary. There's an innkeeper in an old story who kept his inn open 24/7, available to every traveler at every hour, never closed, never rested. He died of exhaustion at 40. Another innkeeper opened 12 hours daily and closed at night, served his guests excellently during open hours, rested completely during closed hours, lived to 80. You've been trained to be available like a customer service hotline, and you believed it. Someone texts, better respond in 30 seconds. Someone calls, better answer immediately regardless of what you're doing. Someone has an urgent request, better drop everything. But here's what nobody tells you. 90% of urgent things aren't actually urgent. They'll either fix themselves if you wait, or they were never your problem to begin with. People have trained you to be constantly available, and that training is killing you slowly. Constant availability guarantees burnout. Boundaries guarantee survival. Try this. Stop responding to everything instantly. Give yourself permission to take 24 hours to respond to texts. Let calls go to voicemail during your focus time. Watch what happens. The world doesn't end. People survive. The emergencies that couldn't wait somehow resolved themselves. I know someone who answered every text within 5 minutes, took every call regardless of timing. He was exhausted, resentful, never had uninterrupted time for anything important, started setting boundaries, responses within a day instead of minutes, calls returned during specific hours only, people adjusted, his peace returned almost immediately. You're not an emergency room. You're a human being who needs focus time, rest time, and time that belongs only to you. Being unavailable isn't rude, it's necessary. The people who genuinely respect you will understand boundaries. The ones who don't weren't respecting you anyway. Create office hours for your availability. Even in personal relationships, be present during those hours. Be unavailable outside them. Your mental health depends on it more than you realize. Selective availability isn't selfishness, it's sustainability. Choose it. Law 9, the Stoic decisive action practice. There was a general in ancient times who analyzed every possible battle scenario endlessly. What if they attack from the north? What if the weather changes? What if supplies run low? He considered 1,000 different outcomes, calculated every risk, planned for every contingency. While he was still analyzing, the enemy attacked. He lost because overthinking delayed action. Meanwhile, the decisive general analyzed quickly with available information and acted. He won consistently, not because his plans were perfect, but because he actually executed them. That's what overthinking does. It pretends to be intelligent preparation, but it's really just fear wearing a lab coat. Some of you could overthink tying your shoes. What if I tie it wrong and people notice? What if the knot comes loose? It's exhausting. Overthinking doesn't solve problems, it multiplies them. Every scenario you imagine, every what if you consider, every potential outcome you calculate, none of it is actually happening. You're torturing yourself with fiction while real opportunities pass you by. Analysis paralysis is just procrastination disguised as being thorough. Build your decision-making muscle by starting small. Choose what to eat in 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. Pick the movie in 2 minutes. Buy the decent option instead of researching for weeks to find the perfect one. Make fast decisions on low-stakes things and watch what happens. Usually nothing bad, and you save hours of mental energy. A woman I know spent 6 months researching the perfect laptop, read hundreds of reviews, compared every specification, waited for the ideal moment to buy. Another person spent 2 hours researching, bought a good enough laptop and used it productively for those 6 months while the first was still researching. Same need, different approach, completely different results. The less you overthink, the more you actually live, because life happens while you're busy planning for perfect conditions that never arrive. Make the decision, take the action, adjust as you go. That's how progress actually works. Law 10, the Buddhist sacred no liberation. There's a guy in an old teaching who said yes to every single request, helped everyone, attended everything, committed to all of it. He carried everyone else's burdens until his back literally broke under the weight. Meanwhile, a woman said no to 80% of requests and yes to the 20% that genuinely mattered. She helped fewer people, but helped them deeply and meaningfully. She stayed healthy, made a real impact, and actually had a life. Saying yes to everything is really just saying no to yourself. You think you're being kind, generous, and helpful, but what you're actually doing is betraying yourself over and over to avoid the temporary discomfort of disappointing someone else. People-pleasing isn't kindness, it's fear. Fear of conflict, fear of judgment, fear of someone being upset with you. So you say yes to things you hate, places you don't want to go, people you don't even like, all to avoid 5 minutes of someone being disappointed in you. No, without guilt is self-respect, and your peace matters more than their comfort. Start saying no to social events that drain you, to favors that exploit your kindness, to commitments that steal your time. Some people will call you selfish. Let them. They'll get over it or they won't. But either way, you'll finally be able to breathe. Someone I know said yes to every social invitation, every favor, every request for years. Exhausted, broke, resentful, started saying no to most things. A few people called him selfish and drifted away. Turns out they were only around for what he provided anyway. His real friends understood boundaries. His energy returned immediately. You're allowed to disappoint people to respect yourself. You're allowed to be unavailable. You're allowed to prioritize your peace over their expectations. No is a complete sentence. Practice saying it. Get comfortable with the temporary discomfort, because on the other side of that discomfort is freedom you forgot existed. 10 ancient laws of intentional subtraction, not aggressive elimination. Gentle, deliberate releasing of what no longer serves you. The overloaded traveler died 3 miles from safety. The wise traveler carried only essentials and reached the oasis. Same desert, same destination, opposite outcomes. The difference, intentional subtraction. Your peace, your energy, your focus, That's the most valuable currency you've got. Every moment you tolerate energy drainers, comparison traps, people-pleasing, and mental clutter, you're spending currency you can never earn back. This week, pick one law, just one. Easiest start, stop pointless arguments, save that energy. Biggest impact, create boundaries with people who drain you. Most liberating, start saying no without guilt or explanation. Remember what Michelangelo said, the sculpture already exists in the marble. You just remove what doesn't belong. Your life works the same way. Start carving, not tomorrow, today.